Okay, so this will already be on, but just so you know, this turns on the power for the entire rack. And if people have shut it off together, your scopes should come up. They'll definitely be on for you in the test. And that monitor will often come up as well, and these monitors. So some people turn these off separately, but they can all go on and off with the switch, right? But the cameras are always off in advance, and one of the cameras that we hook up, it'll just stay off because you're going to be hooking it and unhooking it all day. So the camera that you'll use for white balancing will already be on, but here's where you would indicate when I ask, where would you turn on this camera? You would come in and say, I turn it on, you know, here, or here, or here, depending on which camera it is. Okay, so we're going to turn on, is it camera 1?
Camera 1.
And remember, that matters based on the cable that's attached, not whatever number's on the camera, right? But I saw you guys attach that with it. Okay, so you can see that this white balance is way off. Actually, that could be the green. And it looks like the phase is way off too. So you shouldn't have to worry about that, but when it comes time to do a white balance, we're going to have to so you zoom into one of the edges to get your focus, so the edge of the white paper. So keep going there, there you go. Okay, good. So it's the paper that you're looking at, and once it's sharp, you can just pan over, and then you would lock your camera and come back in here. And so, I mean, one of the issues, this, I'm not going to try to trick anyone, but I can see that this is actually out already, not that it matters for white balance. But this should be on this line here. We didn't really go over that. But you can see this is white, but it's, if it was really white, it would be in the center. So it's actually kind of cyan light right now. But that's not a problem for us right now. So for white balance, you want to make sure that you've got this on 100. Now some people prefer to boom this thing up. I don't like it to be over, see as we go down, now you can really see. So the problem is when you go up like this, everything looks white because you're just blasting the heck out of it. So with this in the proper position, and I'll make sure that it's in the proper position for you. So just making sure that this line is on 0 and this one's on -40. You're going to adjust your iris to make sure the exposure is below 100. Now ideally you want it somewhere between 80 and 100. I like to bring it right up to 100, but just, you know, so that it's touching. And now we can actually see, and you might not be able to on there, but this is looking kind of bluish, right? And it shouldn't. So this is where we do our white and black balance. The switch needs to be in auto. This doesn't mean that it automatically keeps changing, that's the auto tracking right. This means that you're going to let the camera, you're going to tell it this is white, and it's going to automatically make its adjustments. And if it works, this will actually move into the center. So we press our white button, and you can see it is now in the center, and that now it's white instead of bluish. Okay, so after you do a white balance, you always do a black balance. So it actually caps the camera, and again is trying to put that in the center. And even though I can see that it's done here, engineers always recommend that you go white, black, and then white again. So just pick your white balance again. And there we go, we've got our white balance. Okay, so the important thing is make sure you're focused on the paper, and make sure you're level. Just the iris is in that 100 range. And like, notice even changing that blue, this actually changed where this was at as well. Just kind of interesting. Doing the white balance actually it had to obviously increase the green and red or something, which increased our overall level as well.
Okay, so when it's changed like that, do you just go back down to 100? Or after
Well, you can,
white?
but we're kind of done now. So the next thing you'd be doing is exposing on your set.
Okay, yeah.
So it's just, you want to make sure you've got enough level that it can do the white balance. And you'll notice that based on our lights, this is actually falling off a bit. That is, it's brighter over here than it is over here.
Paper is bent.
Yeah, and that's partly where we put it, and you're right, the paper's bent, so it's reflecting back. So any questions about that? So that's the white balance done. Now I'm not going to have a model for our test. I'll basically have a picture, but just so you know, pictures work just like someone being in front of the camera. So I'll actually put a picture in front of the camera and ask you to expose, okay, and we're looking at the face for that. So we'll go get someone to sit in. But this is a pretty simple example because Brock happens to be wearing something that's sort of not the color, the same color as the highlighted splash. So you can see there's our green background, there's his red sweatshirt, and this is the shape that we tend to get for a face. Okay, so it's kind of a curve like this. Okay, so this is his face, and you'll see that even if it's a picture of a person. Okay, now it's based a bit on the lighting. If someone's completely side lit, then won't be symmetrical like that. It'll kind of go up and then drop off. But because our nose and our forehead tend to get a bunch of light, and even our chin, there tends to be more light in the middle, okay, and then it falls off. So that's actually what you're looking for. And then you want to place the highlights between 60 and 80. And so as an average, I just say, go for 70, right? So we've got a few little minor peaks flaring up there, but I look for the general trend of how that goes over and can see that. So aside from those two little spikes coming up, that is now on 70. So hopefully you can see that. It says 60, it says 80, 70 isn't marked. But you can see that that round parabola-like thing is rounding off and going over at 70. So that way you know you've got the whites or the iris exposed correctly. So then you look at your blacks. Now if you have no black in your scene, like you have to be careful here. So here we do maybe have some black in here and in here. So if you look, there's black, and you can see that there's some kind of hairy stuff going on underneath that too. So the black is the small knob, and you just pull that down, and the dotted line down here, 7.5, is what you're aiming for. But if you go down too far, see how this stuff starts to crush and build up? So that's way too far. So once it kind of stops and starts to flatten up, you need to back off of that. And sometimes you'll have to back off more than necessary because you'll see, pull things up, but there are trailing things down below too. So it all depends how much detail you want in there. So we pulled that down so that we've got some blacks here and here, but of course that means we've lost detail in his hair as well. See how now there's no detail in his hair? And now there's more detail, but we've washed it the rest of the picture. So he's wearing a hat, which makes it a little more difficult, but there it goes down to 7.5. But pulling down our blacks has pulled down our whites a bit. So we're just going to pull those back up again. And pulling them up pulls our blacks up. So, I mean, you could go on forever and ever, but usually it's fine to do your iris, then your blacks, and then go back to your iris. You know, if you want, you can double check. Like I say, you can keep going back and forth forever. And that's how you make sure you have the proper exposure.